Cyno seems to be a character I just can't seem to quit. Every time I think I'm done talking about him, something else will come up and I'll go, oh, I should really talk about him a little bit more. Because he's a character I don't particularly rely on for anything in the game really, but when I do play him as a character, he is insanely fun. Recently I put out a video of my sort of opinion on whether Cyno is worth pulling, and it's yes with an asterisk. The big problem with Cyno is that he needs teams that support the fact that he needs to be on the field pretty much the entire time his burst is up. And that's pretty much what this video is. It is just a handful of small teams that will get the job done for Cyno, for anyone that's looking to pull for Cyno this Wednesday. If you need some team suggestions and you're pulling him, here you go, here's a couple. One thing I will say, this man is an absolute reaction king. I had no idea how reaction centric he was until I tried out these teams. They took me by surprise. It was so much fun. The only character I'm individually going to look at is Cyno. So Cyno, this is currently how he's outfitted. There's nothing too special about how I've built him. Weapon, he's stuck with the Ballad of the Fjords, which is the new Battle Pass weapon. Before the Ballad of the Fjords, I was using Deathmatch. Pretty much anything that increases crit rate or crit damage for him is pretty much what you want. Black Cliff Pole, if you've got plenty of crit rate, would be a great 4-star option. I really like Ballad of the Fjords because not only do I get crit rate, I also get additional elemental mastery, which is something good old Cyno is going to want. In terms of artifacts, we have the Electro set. The Electro set is great just because it decreases elemental skill cooldown, and every time Mortuary Rite pops up on the screen, you want to be able to actually use your elemental skill. Plus, you know, it does a ton of reactions and it's a pretty bog standard. He does electro damage, so I'll give him the Electro set. Here's a look at the actual artifacts themselves. That one's not too terrible. Could be much better, but it could be a lot worse. This one, again, not awful. The energy regen definitely helps. Cyno, I find, is very energy regen hungry. Thankfully, it's kind of mitigated by the fact that his ult can just completely fill up again. This one is dependent on your personal opinion. You can either go for Elemental Mastery or Attack percent when it comes to the Sands. I like the Elemental Mastery, partly because I like pairing him up with Dendro, and the sort of the difference I found hasn't been enough to go one way or the other. So I like the added bonus of what Elemental Mastery can provide with him. Of course, we've got the electro damage. This is a dreadful, dreadful cup, but it's on set. So, and then this is also pretty not great, but it is a crit damage cup, and the crit rate is actually not abysmal. But yeah, his artifacts are pretty bad. He's not particularly well built, but he gets the job done. I don't have any complaints with his overall output at the minute. He is C0. I'm sure he gets much better as you go through his Constellations. This video is just going to be approaching him from a C0 perspective. In terms of talents, he is at 188. He was originally at 166. His basic attack is pretty much useless unless, you know, for some reason you're doing it, but let's be honest, you really don't need to be doing Cyno basic attacks in any form whatsoever. His E, this is required to scale. I originally wasn't going to bother leveling it, and then unfortunately, if you read it, when he has his ult on, this does actually increase his E's damage. So you do need to scale his E with his ult. These need to scale at pretty much the exact same level. And then of course the ult is, his burst is about the same level. And here we have the reason for actually building Elemental Mastery. It increases Pack Swarm Path Clearer's normal attack damage, increased by 150% of his Elemental Mastery. So that is one of the reasons you'd build Elemental Mastery. So that is Cyno. He is not the greatest character I have ever built, nor will he ever be, but he's still very satisfying to play. Now, let's go over a couple of different teams for him. I have 3 sort of already pre-built in my mind, so pick and choose as you prefer. And then obviously you're free to flex different characters as much as you like. This is the Double Hydro. With Double Hydro, I like to go for Yelan and Xingqiu because Yelan and Xingqiu just do absolute insane raw DPS numbers with almost no effort whatsoever. Xingqiu, incredible burst output. Yelan, incredible burst output. Everyone knows the DPS both of these characters provides. And the whole point of this one is that with Nahida on the team or anyone that has Dendro, you don't have to necessarily use Nahida. It's just that Nahida's burst and her skill, very good, very long uptime. You get a lot of benefit from it. Combined with the 2 Hydro units, you've got blooms being created, you've got plenty of elemental mastery. You've just got so many reactions going off. That's what I found so fun about these teams, is that Cyno just allows for so many reactions, and they're not all the same. You'll have like Quicken, Aggravate, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, just so much stuff goes off. Electro Charge. There's so much going off all the time with all of these teams, and that's why it just is so much fun to play Cyno with these teams, is because the dude he allows for an insane amount of reactions, because there's not enough cooldown. Initially, the team was to have a Hyper Bloom specific team, but the problem with that is that Dendro Blooms weren't being created fast enough, so other reactions were going off. But while that's happening, the blooms are still being created, and other reactions are still going off while Hyper Bloom is also happening. So there's just a lot going on with Cyno. He does a ton of reactions, and it is very fun and very satisfying. If you don't have Yelan, Baiju, if you've just pulled for Baiju, is great because his burst is about the same sort of length of time as Yelan or Jingcho's. If you don't have him, Dendro MC is always a really, really good option. Not ideal, but still a really solid option. I'm not going to look into any other character builds just because it'll take way too long, but everyone is built how you would sort of expect them to, like Nahida's, standard Deepwood Memories, that kind of thing. Double Dendro is also another team that is absolutely just so incredibly reactionary heavy that it is just very, very fun and very, very enjoyable, because you'll have Nahida hooking up everyone to blooms, you'll have Baiju also constantly applying some type of Dendro, you'll have Yelan doing, standard Hydra DPS. It will be less with Jingcho not currently in the slot, which is to be expected, but again, you still have Cyno doing Quicken, Aggravate, Electro Charge, Bloom, Hyper Bloom. There's just so many reactions that this character allows you to provide. It just is so very satisfying. Absolutely adore the reactions that Cyno brings to the table. Last but not least, we have Double Electro. Now, Double Electro, I find it isn't quite as fun or as reactionary as Double Hydro or Double Dendro ended up being. It still made a pretty solid effort. The additional benefit of having 2 Electro units means that you have more energy recharge. You then have yourself a battery, which means your burst for the majority of your characters is going to be up more consistently, but you are less likely to have reactions as opposed to Double Dendro or Double Hydro. The great thing with all of these characters I've shown, so for instance, Kuki Shinobu, Yelan, Nahida, Baiju, Jingcho, Dendro MC, all of these characters are great options for Cyno because their burst up time is all around the same sort of time as Cyno's, which is something the man just needs. He needs characters that can support him for the entire duration of his burst. And then you restart your rotation, you do it all over again. That's why someone like Zhangling or Kaya just doesn't really fit, because you just do not have enough time. Because the duration is just going to be about half of what you need, which is definitely not ideal with Cyno. So that's just sort of 3 quick and simple team ideas that I found that has been really fun with Cyno. If you're planning on pulling Cyno in the next couple of days, give them a try. If, for instance, you don't have Nahida, replace it with Baiju. If you don't have Baiju, try Dendro MC, even though this one is in Geo. If you only have Nahida or Baiju and you want to try Dendro, then again, Dendro MC works just fine. If you don't have Yelan, Jingcho is the perfect replacement. For Electro, Kuki Shinobu, great option. Raiden Shogun also could probably work. Her E, it doesn't really go away. Personally, of the 3, between Electro, Hydro, and Dendro, it's a really hard choice between Hydro and Dendro. I really like the raw DPS increase you get from Hydro, along with the insane reactions that Cyno brings. At the same time, Dendro provides a little bit more elemental mastery because of the elemental resonance, and still has an insane amount of reactions for you to pick and choose from. So honestly, I'm not sure I can pick. Either way, I have a great time with all 3 of the teams on offer. There might be other characters that I can't think of off the top of my head that might be good fits. For Electro, you could potentially replace Kuki Shinobu with Fischl. It'll be a bit awkward having, you know, Oz just in one spot. But, you know, if you can kite them in to Oz, he can still do a pretty decent job. So yeah, that's Cyno. The man is an absolute reaction king. That's all I really have to say. There aren't a huge amount of characters that have bursts long enough to support him. If you can find the ones that do and slot them into a team, just like one of these, you will be having a great time, because the man just goes off when everyone's bursts are up. And it's very just simple, click, 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 everything dies, because you've got aggravates, blooms, hyper blooms, electro charge. So much is going off the entire time, and it's very satisfying to watch. Sure, it may not be the biggest damage numbers in the world, but my word, is it still very, very enjoyable. Anyway, I hope that gives at least someone an idea of what they want to do with their Cyno. If you've got some teams that you think might be worth checking out, leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to see how other people play their Cyno. With that though, I must say my goodbyes. Thank you for those that stuck around to the end. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. And until next time, where I don't actually know who I'll be talking about next. Probably won't be Cyno again, I imagine, but we shall see. Stranger things have happened. Until then though, I've been James, the Mayor of Jamestown. Goodbye.